Hi, welcome to Math as a Language. Today's topic is algebraic expressions. We're going to take a look, continue our look at algebraic expressions. But in particular, we're going to look at two aspects of algebraic expressions. The first is, number one, where they come from, okay, and the second is how to write them, okay. So we'll take a look at those two things regarding algebraic expressions. Now, as far as where they come from, where they originate, remember we talked about basic math, that in basic math we have our basic operations in basic mathematics. We can add, we can subtract, multiply, and divide, and you can do those things really, really well. Once you master those basic operations, then you're ready to move on to the algebra. All right. So algebra emanated from our mastery of our basic math skills. And the way that came about is that we talked about how your instructor or whomever may give you a list of problems. Let's go with a 4 plus 7, and maybe another problem, 9 plus 11, and so forth and on. But after all is said and done, we don't want to do all these problems on forever here. That just takes too long. So in comes our algebraic expression. An expression could be like something like this: x plus y, where x plus y would be your variables, and they take on all of your real number values, whether fractions, decimals, percent, and then you can do a whole host of problems with this one algebraic expression. We talked about that earlier in earlier videos. Okay, so to the heart of it, as far as the first question that we're answering today, where these expressions came from, the truth of it is, as in this instance, in this case, they can just be made up. Pure and simple, they're just made up. They're made up to serve a purpose. In some instances, in many instances, they're made up just in order for you to practice a skill, whether in this case it's an addition skill or a subtraction skill, multiplication or division down the line. But for no reason, they're just artificially made up to practice a skill or develop your basic math abilities, if you will. Okay. Now the second part of it is the second aspect in terms of where these expressions come from is this. It generally, for the most part, we want to recognize, as Galileo indicated, that math is a language in which God has written the universe. That is to say, to suggest that mathematics is all around us. So the second part of where these expressions would come from would be, generally speaking, it's from our real world experiences. From our real world experiences. Alright, and what we mean by that is this. For the most part, and I tell this, I've told this to students often, you don't ever, unless a teacher, you're in a math class or something like that, you don't, very rarely do you just run across a 2x plus 5 just sitting there anywhere, or any other expressions for that matter. That is to say, these expressions hopefully they reflect things that are happening in the real world, or some interpretation that a mathematician or a scientist is making in terms of what's going on around us. And in our cases, since we're just beginning algebra here, our experiences are also going to be called upon to create to translate algebraic expressions. So in a case like this, let's just do some very basic interpretations, if you will. Let's go back in order to bring the point home about math being a language. Let's go back to our basic math operations, and we'll just do a few of them in terms of adding. If you're dealing with a basic math operation of addition, then there's certain words, certain terms that connote that implies addition. Not the least of it, if you say that you're looking for a sum, that's a term that we know that is related to addition. Or if something is increased by. If something is increased by a certain amount or unit, we know that implies addition. Or someone asks you for the total. We've had enough real world experience, I think, at this point to know that these terms, these words, and others like them suggest addition. So that's what we mean by real world experiences. And of course, we're just starting this out, and we're not going to sugarcoat it. It is challenging to make these translations, to come up when you to interpret the expressions, to come up with the proper operation. But there's, at this point, I think we all have certain ideas about what it would mean to subtract, and not the least of which, if someone asks you to find the difference, we know that a difference means that you've subtracted one value from another, if you will. Or if you say it's less than, one person's amount or total is less than another. Or simply put, if it's been decreased by. Again, these are all phrases and terms that suggests subtraction. All right, and those are the things that we will experience in the world in order to help us interpret, in order to translate our life's experiences into algebraic expressions. As far as multiplication goes, we know that in multiplication, if someone number is multiplied times another number, or we want a product, of course, would be the answer to a multiplication problem. Or if you ask for 10% of a value, there's certain terms that it implies multiplication. And finally, as we're well aware, similarly, there's certain concepts that go with division, whether something has been split into two parts, if you will, or divided by, of course. Divided by would be an obvious one. And in terms of the answer, if the answer is a quotient, that would suggest that to get that answer you have divided. Okay, so at any rate, these are, when we talk about real world experiences, okay, now we understand that you're at the very beginning, and the difficult and the challenge, of course, is to be able to translate these concepts into algebraic expressions based on how you interpret it, and that interpretation will come with time. But to summarize, the only thing we are trying to emphasize here, that in terms of algebraic expressions, there are two possibilities. Either they're just made up, pure and simple, in order for you to practice a skill, if you will, or the other thing is that we would have them come from our interpretation of the world around us and trying to translate those occurrences or those relationships into algebraic expressions. So if you know that Tom is 3 years older than you are, then if Tom is 3 years older than you, then you know that whatever your age is, if you let Y represent your age, Y for you, then in order to get an expression that represents Tom age, then the idea is that you're going to base and realistically, someone, whether you've done it or an instructor has done it or the author of the textbook has done it, they have drawn from their experiences and decided and interpreted what it means to be older. And again, we know it's a rather simplistic example, but the only point we're trying to make here is that these expressions are one of two things: either they're made up or they're interpreted. But either way, algebraic expressions exist all around us, and as we develop our skills, we will become better and better at creating these expressions based on our experiences. All right, I hope this helps. We look forward to seeing you in the next video, and take care.